I'm about to make an argument that will make some of you furious. Not because it's wrong, because it challenges something you believe is morally obvious, something that feels like basic decency. Raising the minimum wage helps poor workers. Right? It's simple. People deserve to live on their wages. Pay them more, they have more. What's complicated about that? Everything. Everything is complicated about that. Because economics doesn't care about your intentions. Economics only cares about incentives, trade-offs, and second-order effects. And the second-order effects of minimum wage are devastating precisely to the people the policy is meant to help. Today, I'm going to show you the data. Not theory, not ideology. Data from Seattle, from California, from European countries that have tried this experiment. Data about what actually happens when you mandate higher wages. The results aren't what minimum wage advocates want you to see. And they're definitely not what politicians tell you when they campaign on raising the wage. This is the uncomfortable truth about good intentions. 1. The basic theory. Let's start with what everyone agrees on. When you raise the price of something, people buy less of it. This is the most fundamental law in economics. It applies to bread, to cars, to houses, and yes, to labor. Labor is a cost. When you raise the minimum wage, you raise the cost of labor. When you raise the cost of labor, employers have three options. Option 1. Pay the higher cost and absorb lower profits. This happens sometimes, but businesses operate on margins. Many can't absorb significant cost increases without changes elsewhere. Option 2. Raise prices. Pass the cost to consumers. This happens frequently, and it partially offsets the wage gains for the very workers you're trying to help, since they're also consumers. Option 3. Use less labor. Hire fewer workers, reduce hours, automate, eliminate positions. The minimum wage debate is really about how much of option 3 happens. Advocates say it's minimal, critics say it's substantial. The data says the critics are closer to right. 2. The Seattle experiment. In 2014, Seattle became the first major American city to pass a $15 minimum wage. It would phase in gradually, reaching $15 for large employers by 2017. This was a gift to economists, a natural experiment, a major city dramatically raising its minimum wage while nearby areas kept lower wages. You could compare what happened. The University of Washington conducted the most rigorous study. Their findings were not what Seattle politicians wanted to hear. For workers in low-wage jobs, hours worked declined by 9%. This reduction was so large that it offset the wage increase. Total earnings for low-wage workers actually fell by $125 per month on average. Let me say that again. The policy designed to help low-wage workers resulted in those workers earning less money. How is this possible? Employers responded to higher wages exactly as theory predicts. They reduced hours, they eliminated positions, they automated where possible. The workers who kept their jobs and hours did better. But enough workers lost hours or jobs that the average worker was worse off. The study also found that the number of low-wage jobs fell by 6 to 7%. These weren't jobs that moved to the suburbs, they were jobs that disappeared. Some economists disputed these findings, other studies found smaller effects. The debate continues, but the most comprehensive study of the most significant minimum wage experiment found negative effects. 3. The California data. California has been raising its minimum wage steadily, reaching $15.50 statewide and higher in some cities. Los Angeles hit $16.78. San Francisco reached $18.07. What happened? Restaurant employment in California has grown slower than in states without large minimum wage increases. A Harvard Business School study found that each $1 increase in the minimum wage led to a 4 to 10% increase in the likelihood of a median-rated restaurant closing. The restaurants that closed weren't McDonald's. McDonald's can absorb costs or automate. The restaurants that closed were independent, often immigrant-owned, often serving working-class communities. Fast food chains responded differently. They automated. California now has some of the most automated fast food operations in the country. Self-order kiosks, automated drink dispensers, reduced counter staff. In 2024, California implemented a $20 minimum wage specifically for fast food workers. Chains immediately announced price increases of 5 to 8% and accelerated automation plans. Pizza Hut laid off over 1,200 delivery drivers before the law took effect. The jobs didn't disappear because greedy corporations wanted to punish workers. They disappeared because at $20 per hour, it's cheaper to install a kiosk or outsource delivery to gig workers not covered by the law. 4. The European evidence. Europe provides longer term evidence because many European countries have had high minimum wages for decades. Let's look at youth unemployment. France has one of the highest minimum wages in Europe relative to median wages. France also has youth unemployment of around 17%. The youth unemployment rate has been in double digits for decades. Spain has similar policies. Youth unemployment regularly exceeds 25%. Germany, until recently, had no national minimum wage and instead relied on sectoral bargaining. Youth unemployment was around 5 to 6%. The pattern isn't perfect, but it's consistent. Countries with higher minimum wages relative to median wages tend to have higher youth unemployment. Why youth specifically? Young workers are the least productive. They have no experience, they require training, they make mistakes. An employer might be willing to hire an inexperienced young person at $10 an hour to learn on the job. At $15 an hour, that same employer might require experience they'll never get the chance to develop. The minimum wage prices the least productive workers out of the market. Those workers are disproportionately young, disproportionately minority, and disproportionately from disadvantaged backgrounds. The people hurt most are the ones the policy is supposed to help most. 5. The automation acceleration. Here's what minimum wage advocates systematically ignore. Technology. Every business makes constant decisions about labor versus capital. Should we hire another cashier or install a self-checkout machine? Should we add delivery drivers or partner with an app? Should we keep the call center or implement an AI chatbot? These decisions depend on the relative cost of labor versus technology. When labor is cheap, humans win. When labor is expensive, machines win. Minimum wage increases tip the balance toward machines. The trucking industry is investing billions in autonomous vehicles. Every increase in driver wages accelerates the economic case for self-driving trucks. Retail is replacing cashiers with self-checkout and Amazon Go-style automated stores. Higher labor costs make the investment payback period shorter. Food service is automating order taking, food preparation, and delivery. Flippy the burger flipping robot exists because labor costs reached a threshold where the robot makes economic sense. These technologies would come eventually regardless, but minimum wage increases accelerate their adoption. They compress the timeline. And here's the crucial point. Automation eliminates jobs permanently. A worker who loses hours to a minimum wage increase might eventually get them back. A worker replaced by a machine is replaced forever. The minimum wage doesn't just reduce employment today, it accelerates the elimination of entire job categories for tomorrow. 6. The informal economy. When legal employment becomes too expensive, economic activity doesn't stop. It goes underground. In countries with high minimum wages, the informal economy flourishes. Workers are paid off the books, businesses operate without licenses, transactions happen in cash without records. This is common in Southern Europe, where high labor costs and rigid employment laws coexist with large informal sectors. In Italy, the shadow economy is estimated at 12–15% of GDP. In Spain, similar levels. The informal economy isn't tracked in official statistics. When economists measure unemployment, they don't count people working illegally for below minimum wage. When they measure the effects of minimum wage, they miss the workers who move to informal arrangements. The informal economy isn't a victimless workaround. Workers in informal employment have no protections, no unemployment insurance, no workplace safety regulation, no recourse for wage theft, no social security contributions for retirement. The minimum wage is supposed to ensure dignified work. For many workers, it pushes them into work that's far less dignified than the legal low-wage jobs it eliminates. 7. The small business squeeze. Let's talk about who actually pays minimum wage. Large corporations like Walmart and Amazon already pay above minimum wage in most markets. They can afford to. Their scale provides efficiency that absorbs labor costs. They actually benefit from minimum wage increases because they hurt smaller competitors more. The businesses squeezed by minimum wage increases are small, local, and often minority owned. The corner bodega, the family restaurant, the independent retailer, the small manufacturer. These businesses operate on thin margins. A 20–30% increase in labor costs can be existential. A study of San Francisco's minimum wage increase found that restaurants were significantly more likely to close, with median-rated and lower-rated restaurants affected most. The high-end restaurants survived, the neighborhood spots closed. When a small business closes, the workers don't move to better jobs. They move to unemployment or to jobs further from home or to the informal economy. The minimum wage accelerates economic concentration. It helps large corporations that can absorb costs and automate. It hurts small businesses that can't. The result is less competition, less diversity in the economy, and fewer options for workers. Amazon lobbied for minimum wage increases. Think about why that might be. 8. The price pass through. Let's follow the money. When labor costs increase, businesses raise prices. This is pass-through. Studies find that pass-through to prices is substantial. Often 60–80% of wage increases end up in higher prices. Who pays those higher prices? Everyone, including the low-wage workers who receive the raises. A minimum wage worker who gets a 20% raise but faces 10% higher prices for food, services, and goods has gained less than the raise suggests. In some cases, the price increases they face can offset most of their gains. But price increases don't affect everyone equally. Higher income people spend a smaller share of their income on the labor-intensive services most affected by minimum wage: fast food, retail, personal services. Price increases matter less to them. Lower income people spend a larger share of their income on these services. Price increases hit them harder. The minimum wage effectively taxes consumption of labor-intensive services. That tax is regressive. It takes a larger share from lower income people. This doesn't mean minimum wage workers are worse off. Some are better off, but the policy is less progressive than it appears because the costs fall partly on the working class. 9. The hours game. Employment isn't binary. You're not just employed or unemployed. You can be employed with reduced hours. Minimum wage increases consistently lead to hours reductions. The Seattle study found this. Studies of other cities find this. It's one of the most robust findings in the research. Why hours instead of jobs? Reducing hours is less visible than layoffs. It doesn't make headlines. It doesn't trigger unemployment insurance. It happens gradually and quietly. A worker who had 35 hours now has 28 hours. They're still employed. They show up in statistics as having a job. But they're earning less than before if the hours reduction exceeds the wage increase. Hours reductions also shift workers from one category to another, from full-time to part-time, from eligible for benefits to ineligible, from stable schedule to variable schedule. The minimum wage at $15 for 28 hours per week is $420. The previous wage at $12 for 35 hours was $420. Same total pay, but now without benefits and with less stability. Statistics that only look at wages miss this entirely. You have to look at total compensation hours, benefits, schedule stability to see the full picture. 10. The alternatives. If minimum wage is problematic, what's the alternative? Let workers be exploited? No. There are better ways to help low-wage workers. The Earned Income Tax Credit, EITC. This provides cash transfers to low-income workers. It encourages work rather than discouraging employment. It's paid by general tax revenue rather than by employment reduction. It can be targeted to families with children or other priority groups. The EITC has broad support from economists across the political spectrum. It's one of the most effective anti-poverty programs in existence. And unlike minimum wage, it doesn't reduce employment. Wage subsidies. Government can subsidize wages directly, paying part of the cost of employing low-wage workers. This encourages hiring rather than discouraging it. Singapore uses this model extensively. Sectoral bargaining. Instead of a uniform minimum wage, let workers and employers in each sector negotiate wages that reflect that sector's conditions. This is how Germany traditionally operated. It allows wages to match productivity more closely. Training and education. The best way to escape low wages is to become more productive. Investments in education, job training, and skills development help workers command higher wages without mandating them artificially. Reducing costs. If the goal is improving living standards, reducing costs achieves the same thing as raising wages. Housing policy, healthcare policy, childcare policy, addressing these can make low wages more livable. The minimum wage is popular because it's simple. Mandate higher wages, problem solved, but simple solutions to complex problems usually don't work. 11. Who actually benefits? Here's the uncomfortable distributional question. Who actually benefits from minimum wage increases? Workers who keep their jobs and hours, yes, they benefit. A worker who earned $12 and now earns $15 still working full-time is better off. Higher wage workers. Minimum wage compresses the wage scale from below. Workers earning just above minimum often get raises to maintain differentials. Unions support minimum wage partly because it reduces competition from low-wage workers. Large corporations. They can absorb costs that small competitors can't. They benefit from reduced competition. Automation companies. Higher labor costs accelerate the market for their products. Politicians. They get credit for helping workers without visible costs. Who loses? Workers who lose jobs or hours. They're invisible in the statistics, but real in life. Young workers who never get hired. The entry-level job that doesn't exist can't launch their career. Small business owners. They face costs they can't absorb. Consumers of labor-intensive services. They pay higher prices. Informal workers. They work without protections because legal employment is priced too high. The benefits are visible. The costs are invisible. That's why the policy is politically popular despite its problems. 12. The moral question. Let me address the moral argument directly. People deserve to live on their wages. Yes, but deserving something doesn't make it economically possible to mandate it. If we passed a law saying everyone deserves a $100,000 salary, it wouldn't make everyone wealthy. It would make most people unemployed. The minimum wage works the same way, just at a lower threshold. Setting the wage above what a worker's productivity justifies doesn't help that worker. It eliminates their job. Employers should pay living wages. Some can, some can't. The bodega owner making $50,000 a year can't pay employees more than their labor generates in revenue. Mandating it doesn't change the economics. It closes the bodega. If a business can't afford living wages, it shouldn't exist. Then neither should the jobs it provided. The workers aren't better off. They're unemployed instead of low wage. Some income is better than no income. This is actually the strongest argument against minimum wage. A $10 hour job might not be ideal, but it's better than no job. It provides experience. It provides a path to better opportunities. It provides dignity. The minimum wage eliminates that rung on the ladder for some workers. It tells them, your labor isn't worth the legal minimum, so you can't legally work at all. Conclusion: good intentions, bad outcomes. Here's what I want you to understand. The minimum wage is a policy that feels good. It expresses our values. It says we care about workers. It makes politicians look compassionate. But feelings aren't outcomes. Values aren't economics. The data from Seattle shows reduced hours and earnings for low-wage workers. The data from California shows restaurant closures and accelerated automation. The data from Europe shows persistent youth unemployment. The theory predicts these outcomes. The evidence confirms them. This doesn't mean we shouldn't care about low-wage workers. It means we should care enough to support policies that actually help them. The EITC helps, education helps, reducing living costs helps, targeted support helps. Mandating wages above productivity doesn't help. It eliminates jobs. It accelerates automation. It pushes workers into informal employment. It hurts the young and inexperienced most. The minimum wage is a policy that lets us feel good while making things worse for the people we claim to care about. That's not compassion. That's self-indulgence dressed up as virtue. If we actually care about low-wage workers, we'll support policies based on evidence, not emotion. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. The minimum wage is one of the paving stones. If this analysis challenged your assumptions, hit that subscribe button, because the most important questions are the ones that make us uncomfortable. See you in the comments. And remember, economics doesn't care about your intentions, it only cares about incentives. And when you get incentives wrong, good intentions produce bad outcomes.